Hi, everyone. So prior to our official meeting this evening, we're about to have our first pre-meeting program of the year. Before I turn things over, I want to thank our first Vice Chair, Rachel Glass, for developing this program. With a confirmed appointment, Rachel will be our programs chair for this term, and I'm also looking forward to seeing more local and community-based programs in the months ahead. We're hoping to bring programming that gives us greater insights into organizations in the community and also provide our partner organizations opportunity to learn more about the 34th. So if you're interested in developing and supporting our programs, I encourage you to reach out to Rachel. And I'm pleased that this evening we're able to put a spotlight on an organization based here in the 34th that is focused on addressing poverty in Washington State. So now, without further ado, I'm going to turn things over to Rachel.
Thanks, Graham. I would like to hop right into the program today. Our special guest, Malachi Kane, is the Executive Director of Africatown International. He has served at that position since the formation of the organization in 2013. Prior to that, he served as General Counsel representing the organization and Black families on the Seattle Public Schools SPS, African American Community Partnerships Task Force, under then Superintendent Jose Banda. And although the goals of the task force were accomplished, it was obvious that there was more work to be done in the area of stabilizing families, which is why Malachi continues on with this important work. I'm going to let him give you much more information and details. So without further ado, let us give a warm 34th Dems neighborly welcome to our neighbor, Malachi Kane.
Hello all. Great to be here. It's a pleasure to be invited, and I really cherish the opportunity. In Rachel reading the bio that they wrote some time ago, it just sounds great. Thank you. As she explained, I am the Executive Director of Africatown International. We did get our start off in the educational realm. Just trying to tap into some successes with some of the disparities and other problems that we had observed with our students as parents with students in SPS, meaning there was disproportionate suspension and expulsion rates for Black male students. There was some significant educational shortcomings and other things. We voiced our concerns and eventually got a task force and were able to address some of the issues, far from being over or resolved. After doing the work for a couple of years, it became obvious and evident that a lot of our students were experiencing homelessness. So it was kind of hard or difficult to speak to parents about grades and other things when just the basic necessities of life, their housing, and things around that area were being jeopardized by, rent being raised, district redistricting and other things that were taking place. And so more and more education, although at the forefront of our desired success, more so we were just trying to keep our families stably housed. We're still in that struggle at this point in time right now. Right now, our organization manages the Centralized Diversion Fund. This is a fund, private and publicly funded. Last year, I believe we were at around 5 million. We have a partnership with Jeff Bezos and City of Seattle and King County in general. Primarily what we are doing is providing emergency funding for families, working families that is, and households that are about to fall through the cracks and preventing them from being evicted. So this in itself is rewarding work, but it is never ending. And you have to be tireless to really engage this because when we say homelessness, first thing you think of usually is the, you know, the guy under the bridge with the cardboard box and this and that. But you have to keep in mind, you know, there are thousands of working families who cannot take the rent hikes and who become unstabilized due to, you know, family emergencies, deaths in the family, domestic violence. The house is going to be demolished so they can build condos. All of these type of scenarios we see on a day-to-day basis. And literally we will see families that are living in their car, mom and dad, going to work, dropping kids off at school, taking showers in parks or the Y or something of this nature. They need to be rehoused. They just can't come up with $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 in some instances to move into the family home. You know, which is also a scarcity at this point in time. Just finding a 2, 3, 4 bedroom house for a family in the city of Seattle is also very challenging. Aside from that, you'll see families that have credit issues or prior evictions. This bars them from moving into households. So although you may have 2 checks or paychecks in a household or one, still it's impossible for just the average applicant to amass the amount of money necessary to move in to a comfortable home, stabilize it and pay rent and continue on with day-to-day life. So this is where we come in. We have several programs, a move-in program, a credit restoration program that allows families that have bad credit and things on their background checks to be able to move in. We have several community partners, Housing Connector, as I said, King County, City of Seattle, and over 240 of the local agencies that work on homelessness prevention are able to tap into the centralized diversion fund and source resources for their clients as well to remain or become stably housed. So that's the primary focus of our work in the region right now. And as I said, it was diverted from the educational field simply because of necessity. There was no excuse or anything we could offer our parents when they needed housing, and we were trying to direct them to, you know, push for, you know, better educational environments. But, you know, people were telling me, hey, we're going to be on the streets. You know, we don't even know if we're going to school or where we're going to be. So that's why we diverted our energy and resources to the homelessness prevention and diversion through the centralized diversion fund. So that's just a little bit of background. I'll give you a little more. A lot of people ask us, you know, what is Africa Town? What does it mean? What is it? Is it a place? Is it a, you know, some type of play on Chinatown or Japantown or Germantown? What is it? You know, and my answer is very simple. I don't know. Okay, hold on. Let me see if I can get to share my screen. Is that available as an option yet? Yes, it is. Okay. Can everyone see my screen?
Mhm.
Oh, okay. I guess I'm the host. I have to admit people. Is that correct? I have to admit.
Is there someone in the waiting room?
There was. I just admitted them. I was going to say, hey, you guys let the someone in, and then I just clicked them in.
Thank
So,
you.
all right. Can everyone see that? Is it large enough, or should we go bigger? How's that?
Great.
Okay. Africa Town, the physical location, is a place in Mobile, Alabama. It was founded in 1861, 61. This is the final resting place of the last voyagers on the last slave ship to enter U.S. waters and be pulled into the United States, continental United States. There were 110 passengers on board. The ship sailed and captured the individuals from Africa and returned from Africa with full cargo, all the people on board. And this was allegedly because of a wager or a bet that the ship owner, who was a wealthy landowner at the time, had made with one of his compatriots. Just a drunken bet with a friend that, hey, I've got this boat. And although human trafficking and transatlantic human trafficking has been outlawed, I can make it with my boat back to the States with a full load. After the abolition of slavery, there was an economic crunch among some of the more wealthy and production-based individuals and companies for cheap or free labor. So there was always this push to reinvent slavery, call it something else, allow it for this or that, but the federal government, as it were, just was totally against it, and it was outlawed. However, the ship did return with, as I said, 110 men and women and children on board, and it was apprehended by the government. The people were released, and although there was no criminal charges or anything like that, they were simply freed and left there in Mobile, Alabama. Their first request, and I tell this to people so they can really get a grasp and an understanding of, the reality of this scenario that happens. You get kidnapped, drugged halfway across the world, and in this day and age and in our studies, especially now in Black History Month, we've always studied about the civil rights movement and people wanting or demanding, rights or justice or this or that. And it's always important for us to really understand when these people got off the ship, they didn't ask for health care or housing or justice or to be free or any of that. They asked to go home, and this was something that was never facilitated or could not be facilitated. Even in this event here, where the government themselves said, hey, these people have done something illegal and wrong, as far as we're concerned, you're free to go. And they're like, go where? So from the onset, this has been the case or scenario for a lot of the African Americans, both enslaved and those that never suffered slavery as well. Just the housing situation. Where do I live? How do I make my living? Where can I be comfortable and just raise my family and get on with my life? And still today, as I just explained, we're still experiencing that. So I did share my presentation, and it's short and sweet. And I say that because, Black History Month is something I've celebrated. I don't know if celebrate is the correct word. I will say this. Okay, I did my early schooling, elementary and otherwise, some of it in Arizona, and that would have been during the 70s. So I don't know if anyone's familiar with that picture, what that looks like, but Arizona, maybe 0.5% Black at that time, and still even into my teenage years, vehemently opposed to Martin Luther King Day. I think everyone remembers that because they kind of highly publicized that, that Arizona did not as a state want to adopt the federal holiday of Martin Luther King Day. And before that, there was a large push for different Afrocentric or, African-American based holidays or celebrations. To me, it was always a traumatic experience for one or two reasons. Sometimes I would be the only Black person in a class. And, you know, then this issue would come up. And then the tension would mount and build. And it was like, jump up on the mic and say something, you know, and it was like, you know, so I had that experience. You know, as I said, that was during the 70s. And I went back and forth between my mother and father, who had divorced in the early 70s, shortly after I was born. My father's family was from Kansas City, Missouri. I don't know if you're familiar with that as well. So in my transition of doing school and having the experience of being the only Black person in class, I would then transition sometimes to a school where the entire school was Black. Okay, and I mean the principal, the teacher, the janitor, everyone, all the students. And therein again, you know, having just had this experience in this other scenario with Black History Month or the, you know, proposed holiday or whatever, I would go to this environment and it was quite the opposite. But it was like no one was taking it seriously, you know, and everyone had this, you know, ridiculing, you know, type situation. And the fact that I was fair-skinned in these environments, you know, oftentimes we'd have a school play and they would say, hey, you know, why don't you play the slave master or the white guy or this and that or that and that, you know what I'm saying? And it would be like, oh, you know what I mean? So again, it was never something that was celebrated, I guess you would say. And I hope I've explained the dynamics of the actual events. But let me say this, just in itself, it's traumatic, because when you say Black History Month or, you know, any type of historical context of African America, the first thing you think, you know, okay, well, Martin Luther King. Or, you know, maybe you have a different orientation, you say Malcolm X, or you say Civil Rights Movement. And for a person that is vested in that from their family or their community, that means, okay, Martin Luther King, you know, a leader, a beloved leader, shot and killed. Malcolm X, another beloved leader, shot and killed. And we go on and on and on from there, from dogs and water hoses, this and that, and this and that. So again, this can be a traumatic event. And I think to get through it, firstly, we have to just approach it from a logical perspective, you know, and that is dissecting what really happened, what happened to us, because as the inheritors of the 20th century and everything that came before it, you know, oftentimes we're left holding a tremendous weight that we're expected to carry and deal with. And by no fault of our own, we don't have all the answers. So like I said, a logical approach in just finding some of those answers, working our way through it, and realistically looking at the problems and trying to find solutions together, because no matter what your position is, we're in it together, and we've always been in it together. That's an important point. So getting beyond my trauma, I hope I didn't re-traumatize anybody or offend anybody. And I have a quote about that. I'll share it in a minute. Raised hand, is that official? Or Chris, are you trying to raise your hand?
So Chris, if I could just add in, we're going to have a question and answer time at the end. So if anyone has a question, please hold till the last 15 minutes or so of the program, and we'll have Malachi do Q&A and can answer any questions or any thoughts that anyone wants to add in.
True, I'd love to answer questions, and yeah, just please hold them. And if I say anything offensive, just let me know. Hold on to it. Don't get angry or whatever, because we'll deal with it. So this was a picture, and they always told us this, and we believe it, most of us, that pictures speak louder than words. And I often look at this picture. This is the wallpaper on my computer and my iPad, and I just look at the picture and their faces. I'm trying to envision, what I could do in my life to where you said, take a picture, and then this was how I looked. It's mainly women, and this is a plantation. I've done as much research as I could on it. And like I said, the picture speaks for itself. There's some people there that are, I'm going to persevere and work through this. Other people are in a total state of misery. Some people are confused. Some people are just dead tired. The old, the young, mothers next to their daughters, next to their granddaughters. It's all there. And like I said, I just try to work my way through it. And from that standpoint, up to this day, and the reason I do that, I'm someone that studied epigenetics and generational trauma. And epigenetics is just the scientific or biological terminology for emotional states being passed down through generations, passed from mother to child, mother to son. And a lot of us are conditioned to say or believe or think that happened 100 years ago or 200 years ago. You need to get over this. You need to stop. You need to stop playing victim or seeking victimhood and this and this and that. And I don't think it's that. A lot of times there may be someone that cannot articulate what they're feeling, but definitely as science has progressed and we see that there is transgenerational trauma, and if you don't deal with it, it's going to manifest itself into a negative reaction at some point in time. So I look at this picture, and I wanted you all to see it as well, and just see what they're feeling, and this is what's manifesting in the streets today, in the world, in our communities today. And I am not under any delusions, and I'm not going to promote any to you all. I think as African Americans, we are in a state of emergency. And I'm not going to limit it to African Americans, because I think as Americans, we're in a state of emergency. And it reminds me of a story or an oral tradition, I'll say that was passed down from Africa that I had received some years ago. And it relates to a boat, a multi-level ship that had sailed. And the upper class passengers were allowed to stay on the top deck in the sun and in the fresh air. And the lower class or more impoverished people were escorted to the underbelly of the ship. And they, in the ancient times or older times, a ship or a vessel may sail for 30 to 90 days, So anyway, the ship takes sail, and the passengers that are on the upper decks are enjoying, the sun and the fresh air and the best food, and, they're having a great time. And the people in the underbelly of the ship, they're having a horrible time. It smells down there. It's filthy. It's dark. They have to knock on the top to get permission to go up to get supplies or, fresh water, things of that nature. So someone under the bottom of the ship gets the bright idea that, you know what, I'm going to take this axe and I'm going to knock a hole in the bottom of the ship, just a small hole, to where I can get water for, my daily needs or whatever, the seawater to clean myself, or whatever. I'm just going to do that, just so I don't have to keep going up and down getting water from them. So they did that. And then someone else saw, hey, you guys got a hole over here where you're able to get water, and we're going to try that. So I think we all can imagine what eventually happens. The ship starts sinking and the bottom quarters are filled with water. And, the ship's mate and the others run downstairs like, what have you done? And they're like, it got out of control. We were just trying to get water. We were tired of going, but now we're out at sea and the ship is sinking. And the analogy or metaphor here is we're all on the same ship. And although we're not all on the same level, when we have people in our society that we're tied to, that are doing destructive behaviors, it's going to eventually affect us all. So just wanted to share that with you all. I hope I haven't wasted too much of your expectation or time. I'm still clicking, letting people in. So hopefully we're going to have a full house at some point. All right, let me get my new share together. What I did, like I said, I just wanted to keep it short and sweet and something that we could all relate to. I composed a pretty simplistic timeline. After the formation of the original Africa town in Mobile, Alabama, in 1861, they closed out the century and the Reconstruction period and all of that. And there was so much hope for 1900. Slavery had been abolished. And, like I said, there were Black politicians in the Senate, in Congress, as advisors and representatives, and things were on the upswing and hopes were high that finally Black people would be integrated into society in a productive and profitable and prosperous way. And so coming into the 1900s and escaping the 1800s where, slavery had dominated more than half of the century, going into the 1900s as a free man, as a free woman, and as an upright human being, able to push forth in their own destiny. This was, a great period and time of hope. Also, it was a time period where the political infrastructure of America had really taken hold and embraced the African American as a real issue. You had one side of the coin that said, hey, this is a danger. This is a hindrance to, our society that has to be controlled. And another one that simply said, hey, these are people and human beings just like us, and they have goals just like us. Maybe we can exploit that energy and push forth, some of our ideas and goals. Two of the leaders of the political thought process were A. Philip Randolph, who advised the president. He started the Tuskegee Institute and several other. He was the first Black unionist that organized a union for the rail cars. The porters on the rail cars were all African-American men, and he organized a union called the Sleeping Car Porters. His philosophy was this: we don't need to have mainstream appeal, and we don't have to be integrated. And it is better if we're not, because if the gains that we are making financially, land-wise and otherwise, are exposed to the mainstream, it could be detrimental to our movement, our success, and overall our families. That was his philosophy. So kind of like, let's move forward and advance as a people, but let's do it under the radar. We don't need to be sitting next to, the other citizens eating in restaurants and this and that, infuriating and, inflaming tensions. He pushed for more of a separate but equal solution. He also was a supporter of Marcus Garvey, who had a more of a back to Africa philosophy. So he was pitted or placed in direct opposition to another African-American intellectual and statesman. That was W.E.B. Du Bois, who was more or less the founder of civil rights, or the civil rights ideal and mentality, meaning we are going to force you by any means to change the society to incorporate us and integrate us into your systems, into your schools, into your businesses. We're Americans, you're Americans. We're going to overcome this barrier of hate, through education and economic fortitude. So you had these two opinions opposing each other. Let me get another share together. I didn't mean to do that. At this point in time, you had the largest push for land ownership by African Americans in the history of the country. As soon as I can find it. Okay, here we go. And let's go there. This is a graph. I couldn't get the full graph for 1900, but at 1900 was the peak year for Black ownership of land. Here the quote is 14 million acres. That's like a third of Washington state in private ownership by Black individuals and businesses. Also, this was a high level of investment, productivity, and Black business. We hear the term Black Wall Street, and there were several of them throughout the South and other regions, but it was a time of prosperity and Black self-sufficiency. And I'm sure you can see the graph, how it just significantly declines when we start getting into the 20s and the 30s. This is the resurgence or the hyper implementation of the Jim Crow era and its push against Black businesses and Black ownership as the Jim Crow philosophies invaded the government. The people that owned this land, they were basically swindled out of the land or pushed out of the land due to technicalities. Some of their paperwork wasn't right as far as the new rules and laws that were being developed so far as land ownership and deeds and this and that and the other. There were several different methodologies in which the land was taken from them. And you can see this steep decline all the way down year by year, day by day to the 80s, where, it almost bottoms out. And this is not by accident. This is not because of, not solely at this point in the early 1900s, because of any social ill that the African Americans had engaged in, but this was systematic policy implemented by the government just to strip power and land away from the African American community. We had it all planned out, meaning all of us. We had the answer. And that was, if you own land, because at this time at 1900, if you did not own land, you could not vote. Okay, this is before the suffrage movement. And so to vote or to participate in any political ventures, you had to be a landowner. So the top Black aspiration was to own land and a business and to be a productive, strong member of society. And as I said, there were different schemes and mechanisms put in place by the United States government that severely hampered this. So I've also enclosed or will share from the some of the government websites in their own words what they're saying, because their goal was to you know, like I said, strip power from the African American voter base and create more of a dependency than self-sufficiency. So when we see what we see today, we have to always remember and realize it's not by accident, not at all. Okay, Graham, okay. No, you didn't.
Yeah, I just want to note we have about 15 more minutes till we have a hard stop in case you all want
Okay.
Rachel and you want to open it up for questions.
Okay, all right. We'll move through it. As I said, we've got a pretty basic timeline. And
Yeah, if you want to just take a few more minutes, Malachi, that is totally fine.
okay, no problem, no problem. Moving into the 60s. Again, the two opposing philosophies of separate but equal and civil inclusion bump heads again with our two of our most prominent leaders and spokesmen, Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. And, you know, at this time in the 60s, you know, there was a, I think, hold on. Yeah, you guys should be able to see it. Oops, sorry. The New Deal and other discriminatory practices, as they call them, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, at this point in time, had basically swindled all of the land away from African Americans. In fact, after the I Have a Dream speech, we have another speech from Dr. King, where he's condemning the Department of Agriculture, and he's asking, you know, when there's going to be some type of compensation. At the same time, you know, the farmers, the white farmers were getting, you know, subsidized, and just there was a tremendous land grab while we were being stripped of land, and land being the basis of power. You know, in the political spectrum, you know, this was a tremendous loss for us as a people. So we know how that story ended up. And as I said, we don't need to re-traumatize or rehash or revisit the end of either of these gentlemen, but just to be conscious of the history of it and what happened. 1980, 20 years later. So we've gone from 1900 to 1960. Now we're at 1980, and we are basically depleted. Let me see here. I have placed here a icon or picture. I don't know if you all are familiar with them. Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. We've got Mike Wallace and Louis Farrakhan. They had a great debate in the 80s over the condition of Black society and the overall condition of the people. And at this point in time, there was no Black leadership. Black leadership had been killed and annihilated, in America. And as a youth in the 80s, I can remember the other two gentlemen on the top. These were drug dealers. These were people in our neighborhood. And after the government had failed and the leadership had failed, the crack epidemic was most prolific. And this was kind of the nail in the coffin for the Black community. After this, there basically was none. With the 80s came the invention or the expansion of the police state for African Americans, the so-called war on drugs, which then again reclaimed all of the houses and property that were involved in the drug trade or could have been involved in the drug trade. One of the documents from the government, was the city of Detroit, and they were talking about how much they were seizing. And in upwards of $12 billion a year annually was seized in the crack epidemic or drug trade from 1980 to the year 2000, which where we'll go next. Does anybody know that guy in that picture right there? No, you don't. This is Eazy-E. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say he is more influential than Martin Luther King or Malcolm X. And I say that, and I know people are going to say, well, no, that's impossible. No. But I say that because Eazy-E was what they call the godfather of gangster rap. So he was the one that told everybody to go sell crack and to start shooting people and to live a lifestyle of crime. And this was adopted by countless other rappers. And he was a hero. And still, even to this day, they make movies about him. You see somebody walking downtown with their pants sagging down and this and this and that. It's because of him. But the evidence shows that he was backed by some very heavy individuals from the White House on down, BlackRock, Vanguard, Wagner Music, the whole gangster rap thing. And it's all documented. So when we look outside and we see this crime or this explosion in crime and why it's not going anywhere, it's put here. It's engineered. It's not organic. It's not an accident. I know we're limited on time, but I'll just read something from the Washington Post. Right now, 3 companies, Warner Records, Universal Music, and Sony Music, control around 90% of the depiction of hip hop. At the same time, 2 companies, Core Civic, formerly CCA, Corrections Corporation of America, and GEO Group, own about almost all the prison beds in the United States, all the private prison beds in the United States. What connects the 2 industries together? Vanguard and BlackRock own both of them and are controlling shareholders in them both. So these are the people that are creating this music and this imagery that have our society where it is. Lastly, finishing up, this is the March on Washington, the first one. And in 2020, there was another March on Washington. And just looking at the picture again, saying 1,000 words, we can see something. The men are almost non-existent in the 2020 March on Washington. Same procedure, same signs, same complaints. Everything is the same, except the men, where they at? Probably prison, not interested. Who knows? It's just something to say when the claim is made, hey, you guys need to step up and get in your community and do this and do that. Just something to think about. So what can be done? I'm gonna try to move. Okay, I can do it. Let me see. Where do I do it at? Okay. Oh, there it is. Get down. Okay. Then you go over here. What can be done? We have to create and strengthen logical thought processes in the educational system, as opposed to the emotional reactions to society's disparities. This is something that's not done for African Americans. We have to encourage responsible Black youth leadership and community building incentive-based programming, something also that is not really done. We need open opportunities for business and home ownership via lending and entrepreneurial training for both men and women. I was on the SBA's website and they had a great program. Only thing, it's only for women. And, you know, I understand that there's some gender gap and gender-based discrimination, but it does not have the same impact on African Americans as it did in the mainstream world as a whole. It has to be recognized and understood. Lastly, we have to support criminal justice reform. There's been a large outcry for defunding the police, but the police are just an extension of the courts, you know, which are an extension of the legislative bodies. And we have to reform the entire infrastructure if we want to see real change. So I don't know if we got time for, do we meet the deadline?
We've got about, what, 5 minutes, Graham? So
Yeah.
let's take a few questions. Are you ready, Malachi? Does that seem?
Yeah, yes, I'm definitely ready.
Great?
And I'm sorry I had to rush
Let's-
the presentation.
Yeah.
I'll be late for 2 points. It's all right.
Go ahead, Chris.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I guess I just want to take maybe a challenge or two in that the timeline that you presented, I think obviously is accurate and those dates are fine. But if there's an attempt to try to get us to all understand how we got to this point, then it travels all the way back to, and I wasn't here at the beginning of your presentation, I must admit, 1619. That if we don't take people back to 1619 to understand that when the White Lion, the Portuguese ship that landed in Jamestown, put the first enslaved folks there, and that the forefathers knew this, and at that point it was intentional that the institution of slavery would become an institution of America, and that moving forward, this has a tremendous impact. The one thing that I will say that I'm a little shaken that I guess I didn't hear you talk about was the Clinton crime bill had the most devastating impact on the incarceration of Black people. In fact, the war on drugs was nothing compared to the impact of that in the community. And every bit of research and graphs one can muster shows the dramatic difference between the two. That if we had to point to a point of legislation, that would be one. And I'm just wondering how you figure that into your timelines.
Hey, Chris, I'm glad you brought that up. I was kind of rushed and I didn't get to touch on everything. But in speaking about Bill Clinton himself, yes, the omnibus crime bill was one of the heavier weights that we've had to endure. Also, the Biden crime bill and several others that came subsequently after that have devastated the community. You know, as I said, it wasn't a war on drugs, it was a war on Black people. Because if it was truly a war on drugs, there would have been a different approach for the Iran-Contra situation, and they would have went after the source. You know, everybody understands that, hey, if I'm addicted or I'm trying to make a couple of bucks, I have nothing in comparison to somebody that's moving, you know, a shipment, you know, on some carrier into the waters of the United States and unloading drugs. There's no comparison, but rarely do we see a bust on that level. I did have, in relationship to the situation with the gangster rap, in regarding Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton came out in the 90s, and this is what he said. President Clinton asserted today that Calvin Klein ads depicting partially clad teenagers in sensual poses were outrageous, and it was wrong to manipulate those children. As a father of a 15-year-old daughter, he said, he was particularly upset. He took reservation with the inferences to heroin and the children being sexually exploited, and the reflection that it could possibly impact the children negatively. At the same time, gangster rap is at its height. You know, this is the president of the United States going after a blue jean and a cologne vendor, as opposed to someone who is putting on MTV every day, go kill somebody, go sell some crack, shoot, rape, kill, beat, this, and that, and embedding it into our culture, you know, from the highest levels of Hollywood and the music industry and the mind control apparatus that go along with that on children. So he had this to say about someone just with some cologne ads, but nothing to say about gangster rap except go to jail. So yeah, Chris, I hope, you know, I didn't touch on the 1600 date or the Pope issuing the verdict that Black people had no souls, Africans had no souls, therefore they were fair game for slavery. And this is what fueled the slave trade. And we call it the slave trade, the civil rights movement, this, that, and the other, and we're talking about 400 or 500 years, but actually this has been a war. Anytime you go into someone's territory, kidnap people, exploit them, murder them, these are acts of war. And so we've been at war for 500 years against a machine. And I mean, that's just the reality. So I hope I touched on something and shared something with you as you shared with us, Chris.
Thanks, Chris. Preston, you had your hand up. Do you have a quick one? I know we are not going to be able to uncover the amount of information that has, you know, obviously for the length of time that we are talking about, there's a lot to unpack. Do you have a quick one, Preston?
I have a question. It should be quick, but it should also kind of stimulate discussion, because I'm kind of interested in kind of the answer. But Malachi, you had mentioned, you had made the connection about Eazy-E being the most influential individual, and for me that's quite, you know, thought-provoking and stimulating. You know, among my heroes are, you know, Marcus Garvey and Malcolm X, and you know, of course, Malcolm X is influenced by Marcus Garvey's kind of, you know, Black Power philosophy. And Marcus Garvey, among my most favorite quotes of Marcus Garvey is, you know, intelligence rules the world and ignorance carries its burden. And you had mentioned, you know, gangster rap is kind of afflicting the community. And when I try to bring those discussions up, you know, I get some kind of blowback. And I wonder, you know, within, you know, Africantown and other community, other groups that are affiliated with Africantown, what you just kind of shared, is that kind of a viewpoint shared amongst other groups? Is that becoming more popular? Because I would love to know. I would love to be part of that conversation.
Well, it's a touchy subject, because are you attacking my culture, or are you attacking what's wrong with my culture? And why are you talking anything about my culture? You know, we have that type of those viewpoints that are circulating. And you know, I love Marcus Garvey, I love Malcolm X, I love Dr. King, but you'll be hard pressed to walk down the street and find somebody dressed like Dr. King, or singing lyrics, or reciting speeches from Malcolm X, or playing tapes or CDs or streaming them. But you know, just 2 years ago, there was a movie, Straight Outta Compton, you know, related to Eazy-E. And all of these gangster rappers, you know, he was the one that showed them, hey, you can get money cursing on an album. And don't get me wrong, I'm an Eazy-E fan. I mean, that's the oxymoronic part of it. It was great music when I was 16, 17, 18. As a father, you know, as someone in the community that's dealing with gun violence, you know, and listening, you know, at what level do we say, hey, this is irresponsible? Right. And then the what I wanted to show is the white community will not have it. You know, they did not have it during the formative years of this generation. They would not allow it. The
Yeah.
president of the United States had to come out and say, hey, wait a minute.
I think we need to broaden that discussion, because I bring it up also because Eric Adams had mentioned something about, like he's kind of against this trail rap, talking about shooting people and raping people. And then an academic whom I respect, Melissa Harris Perry, who's on MSNBC and all that, criticized Eric Adams. So, but it's refreshing to hear you say that, and I definitely want to continue that conversation.
Well, it's something that needs to be expanded and expounded on, and I'm definitely needing to do that, because it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, the only thing that impresses me is results. And when we look at, 30 years of gangster rap and what it's done to our community, we can't say it's positive.
Yeah,
We can't.
I appreciate you.
Hey, right on, man. I'm glad I could have answered the question, and even heard that you had that as a question. Some people won't even say that.
Malachi, I would like to find, it seems like if we have some interest, and I think we might even have some questions that are still coming here. I would love to find a way to continue this
Mhm.
with our membership, especially there might even be folks who were not able to be here tonight who might want to also be involved and participate in conversation. And from other LDs, I'm seeing in the chat here, Barbara Oakrock, thank you for joining us tonight. So what I would love to do is just after tonight, that we can just maybe find some way to create a future conversation, a discussion, just some kind of a get together where we can have you just maybe a little more time to unpack some of these discussion points that are really important and valuable to hear and listen to and be involved with. So
Hey, not a
is that-
problem at all. Sorry,
Great,
but
great.
Not a
That's
problem at all.
fantastic.
We need to have this dialogue. We need to
That's
have
right.
these conversations. And the more of these conversations that take place, the less of the outside negative influence that has taken us nowhere but in this cyclical, place of just no result, nothing changing, and us just all being debilitated by our society just being destroyed, and exploited by racial infighting. It's no reason. We've already solved these problems. They've been solved since the 1900s. It's just the implementation of the solution that we're lacking by enough individuals that can scream over the pundits and the rest of them that excite this type of rhetoric and hatred and just overall loss.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm definitely down, and I'm glad, and I'm sorry, that we didn't have more time, or that I didn't present faster or whatever.
No,
But
no.
definitely love to come back.
It's not anything you did. It's literally that 60 minutes is just not sufficient time to really get into some of these important issues to think about and talk about. So Malachi Kane, thank you so much for being here. Thank you everybody so much for joining us for this really important conversation. And I pledge that we will continue this. So thanks again, Malachi. Everybody,
for having me.
hands in the air. We can just say thank you to Malachi. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Bye.
you. Yes, thank you so much. Really appreciate and grateful for your time this evening. Why don't we take just a 2-minute reset break, and then we'll come back and start our meeting.
Hey.